But like everyone's got something, whether you're funny or whether you tell great stories or, but it's the thing that you're into, photography or sports or music or art or crochet or whatever it is. Like you take your hobby and you can teach it.
What are the first, I don't know, 3, 4, I don't want to give you the number, but a couple of steps that you think are the best things for somebody to do when they're starting their business? Like, is it getting help right away? Is it, tell me, obviously you've done this a couple of times, so I'm using you as a guinea pig for our audience. Like, what are a few things as you're starting out, you're like, you should do this and skip this and don't do that?
Yeah, well, I mean, shameless plug is pick up Hobby Boss, because it would be, I don't even care whether it's 99 cents or even just message me and I'll just send you a copy. I really, really think that I never had a book that was just, this is what happens from scratch. Like, do this from scratch. Everyone's like, oh, once you have your own business, like scale it to 7 figures and all that. It's like, well, what happens from the beginning? What happens right from the beginning? Yes. So that's exactly what the book is about. It's like, okay, well, in COVID, a lot of people losing their jobs and a lot of people want to switch jobs. And it's like, look at the things you can already do. I highly recommend you get into the info space. Teach someone how to do something you already know. And don't worry if you're the supreme expert of this thing. It's just, if you're passionate about it and you love it, and it's something that isn't super, super weird and only 3 people in the world will be into, then most likely you can actually do something, because it doesn't even matter if there are other big sites. Some people hate big sites. Some people hate corporations. Some people want to hear from someone who's just like them. And so, for example, for me, people are either intimidated by me and they bounce, or I remind them of themselves when they were younger. I think that's why me and Gene Simmons get along so well. But it's I remind them of someone that when they were younger, or they just kind of like hanging out with someone who's a rock star, and it's cool to them. They want to tell my stories at the dinner table. So I've got something, I lean into those things, but everyone's got something, whether you're funny or whether you tell great stories or, but it's the thing that you're into, photography or sports or music or art or crochet or whatever it is. Whatever the thing is why Hobby Boss, you take your hobby and you can teach it. Even if you do what I did, I only got into teaching guitar online to learn direct response. And then then I, went deeper into it and got into other things. But it's even if at the very least you just make an extra, $100 to $500 a month doing something that's based on your hobby. And even if it's being an affiliate, selling other people's crochet courses or whatever, building up an email list. And I'll get back to specifically the steps, but it's I just want to kind of talk about the possibility, the end result, $100 to $500 to even just learn the game and then decide what you want to do from there. And that could be considered technically your step 1. But to really start off, you just have to look at what you already know or what you're already passionate about. I have 3 things. You're either an expert, you are a peer who you're on the same journey with them. You're just going through it as well. Let's just say if it was learning guitar, you might just know how to play a few songs and you help really the right fresh beginners, novices, and you help them. You're just a few steps ahead, and that's fine. Or you're just the best at researching and putting together the resources and coming up with a newsletter that's, here are the 20 best videos I found on this, and you have a $5 per month subscription, or nice. You could be a curator, a reporter of the thing. There's so many different ways to make money, but you have to if you're not passionate about what you do. Well, let's just say if you're there's a big opportunity with crypto, but you don't understand crypto, you don't even care about crypto, and it kind of bothers you hearing about it all the time. Don't get into crypto. Do something that you really love. And I would pick again, there's a whole process inside Hobby Boss, but you have pick 2 or 3 things and do a little bit of research of are a lot of people talking about this thing? Does it seem like something popular? Even narrow down to a specific group of people who might do this, maybe people who retired and teach them how to do photography, or people only in one part of the world, teach them how to do this, or in a language. If you speak another language, oh my God, that's amazing, because you could target that. So definitely starting from your passion. I mean, the tagline is turn your passion into profits online, but getting in the info space just because there's no real overhead.
Yeah, there's no overhead, and you can kind of get started. And the interesting thing that you said is another language. So, a lot of people focus on English, and I feel a lot of non-English speakers are focusing on English market because, the US, Canada, UK is the most money and so forth. But there's a lot of money to be made. Let's say you speak French or you speak Italian, or
totally.
These are huge markets. You know what I mean? And
huge.
and just as an example, what I did when I started my business, and this was in 2009. I won't say how old I am. It's a long time ago. 2009 started the business, and back then, obviously, it sounds like oh my God, Maria, you got in at the right time. But in that time, for me, I was like, oh, everybody's selling merchant accounts here in the US. And, oh my God, how am I going to kind of, outshine all these people? So what I did is I speak a couple of languages as well, but I went to Europe. Like I literally just started,
So smart.
UK, France. I put out some content in French because I speak French, and I was going through all that. And I literally captured a nice part of the market there that was just not as, kind of in tune with everything that's going on in the US. And the interesting thing in the States, everything happens first in the US. So you just watch that market. And if you speak another language, just duplicate it in Spanish or in French.
It's such an amazing asset to be able to speak more than one language. Yeah.
And especially if you're natively. So that's actually a really great tip, because I think there's money to be made in these outside markets. Traffic is so cheap in other languages in comparison to US traffic, right? So even SEO, there's less content, there's all this stuff. So, it's interesting that you say that. I definitely think that people should pick up Hobby Boss. So like if you're just starting out in the industry, guys, this is like everybody's always asking. I hear these questions all the time. Like, what do I even do? Like, how do I start? Where do I go? How did so it's important to use Steve's tips. And just in closing, Steve, you give us such good insight about, how to get started. But once you do get started, once you have that idea, give me another step. Like, did you hire your VAs right away? Like, how did you organize yourself to actually get like kind of some business structure?
Yeah. So, in my opinion, it has to be quick and dirty at first. Like you just got to move fast, and you got to look at like, how do I make money now? And just like kind of a spoiler alert. If you're getting into the coaching business, like just teaching anything, you got to go like one-on-one. Like what we're doing right now. If let's just say it's like meet on Zoom, that's free. Meet on Zoom. It's like decide on whatever price you're going to charge. And you can even start within your inner circle of people. If anyone knows anyone who wants to learn photography or crochet or whatever it might be, whatever, a pencil, like drawing with a pencil. There's so many different things that people are into that you don't even realize that they're into. And so also you don't know your friends who are interested in something. They might never bring it up. Oh, I always wanted to do that. Oh, cool. Okay. Well, do you want to hop on? And you can even have a couple people for free at first, just as just to kind of like get some reps first, and then act as like testimonials. But there's so many different ways to do it. But then once you make your first dollar, like things are going to change in your brain, similar to when your baby's born. Like it's like that switch flips. Whoa, this is real. Holy smoke. An idea I had in my brain has turned into money. If you've never experienced that before, that's going to be crazy for you. Yeah. And so once you do that, then it's just multiplication. Like, let's just see how much I could do of that. And then, but you want to do that until you hit a wall where you're like, oh, like it's a good problem to have. Like, I don't have any more hours. Like I'm booking, I'm kind of getting a bit stressed by this. And then it's like, okay, wait a second. It's not, how do I do this? Like you can make things more efficient. Yes. Charge more even, but then you might want to get someone to help you. And maybe you barter. You might even barter. Like I'll teach you this thing if you help me with this. So you might not even pay the money, but you barter, you pay them in services. And then you start kind of like that. And you're just looking to work yourself up to where you got covered your expenses. You're making a profit. And then some of that profit could be allocated towards, I would highly recommend a Filipino VA for sure. That's, I think, definitely the best country to target for a VA. And then you can just start building and building from there.
Oh, that's awesome. Just getting started and getting the few steps in are always the challenging thing. And I remember
most intimidating.
Yes, it's your first dollar, right? Like my parents had a restaurant, and I think in every kind of like mom and pop small restaurant, their first like dollar. Well, now it's $5 because there's no paper bills. It's always like on the wall, right? Yeah. And it's the same thing for me. Like when I got my first check from like an actual client, I was like, holy shit, this guy actually paid me. I
can't believe it. Like, yeah,
it wasn't like an auto deposit in my bank account for working for somebody. It was literally like, I did this, you did that, and you paid me. So
it represents something.
It's very rewarding. Yeah. It's just kind of like, it's a validation. And the interesting thing of what I liked, what you said, is just rinse and repeat. If somebody paid you for this, then somebody else is going to pay for you for this. Yeah. And one thing I always tell entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you agree with this, is that ask for feedback. Yeah. Did you like this? Would you like me to change something?
How you mold it, you shape it.
Yeah. And that's one thing I find. I hire a lot of, contractors and people who do things, and I never hear that. I never hear, like not never, they're very few. And the very few who do ask me usually get another gig for me because I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Cause now he's going to fix this or he's going to change that. Yeah. So, I mean, anytime, and I'm not, even though I'm so many years into my career, anytime I do a consulting agreement, I think my last question is like, would you have done anything differently? Do you want me to change something? How am I going to learn if I don't know, like if I don't get any ideas of what people like or what people don't like, right? So I think not being afraid to ask is important. So Steve, I think, you went from, like you're a dad, obviously, you're a husband, you're a rock star, you're a coach, you're wearing like a million hats. I'm happy and I'm humbled by the fact that you came onto my podcast. Is there any last advice, or let me ask you a better question so we have a nice closing question? What is the one thing that keeps you motivated?
For me personally, it's creating. Like, and it's funny. Like, it's actually really funny that I have 3 kids. Like, I'm the guy who's like, I'm never gonna have kids or get married or anything like that. But like, creation is like my thing. That like I've got like multiple things always going on at all times, right? And it's funny that I have multiple kids as well. It's like every part of my life is creation, and I think that that's where you feel the most human, the most alive is in creating. It's definitely when I do. This isn't work for me. This is creating. This is my art, right? Like anything I'm doing, whether I'm making music, which I still am professionally, but it's like it's creation at all times. And so, I mean, if there were any parting words, it's I think we live in a time where there's so much opportunity, and I think that it's not that you should do this or that like it might be a good idea. I think everyone has to have something that's absolutely their own source of income. It's a security thing now that like, COVID just pressed fast forward button on everything. But it's like, this is one of the reasons why I also released Hobby Boss when I did, is because I think that I want to empower people to say like, you can do it. And it doesn't matter. You don't have to have $1 million business. Like, it doesn't matter if you have $1 million per year business or more. It's like, you can just have an extra $500. They say like an extra $500 per month is life-changing for people. And it's not even necessarily the $500. It's just the fact that you turn an idea, like in the morning, you have an idea, and at nighttime, you have money that came in for that idea that you had earlier that day. That's such a crazy concept. And so when you experience that, not only is that empowering, but it's also, it gives you the security that like, okay, cool. Well, now I can do that. I don't have to rely on anybody else. Now it's me. It's up to me to do this. And I think that that's just something that is essential now for people. The opportunity is there. There's so much different opportunity there. If you don't know how to do, like, you got to hook up with someone. Maybe you have to partner with someone. But it's like, no matter how you do it, I think that it has to be done now, because you never know if someone's going to like lay you off, or if you get fired, or if, an industry is going to get killed by AI or something like that. You just never know. And so, well,
yeah, I mean, the thing is that I find the funny thing that I find interesting about what you just said is that you said you have to do it on your own because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. About 20 years ago, even, 15, 20 years ago, it was the opposite. It was, you better keep your job because you don't know, if you go out there on your own. And now
that's so interesting.
It's like, it's almost like, and I think that's like a little bit of a trend with a lot of things. Like, you mentioned crypto earlier. Crypto's self-banking. So now you're like, you're self-banking, you're self-working, you're self-creating your thing. And there's almost like that, I feel like that trend that's happening where everybody's I predict in the future it's going to be a gig economy for everything. It's like, you get paid for this, you do this, you do this. Yeah. Jobs, I think, are a little bit antiquated. Like,
it could. I think so as well.
Hope you found today's session valuable. If you have any questions for me or just want to connect, please feel free to visit my website, mariasparagis.com. That's MariaSparagis.com. I'd love to hear what you're working on, so drop me a line on any hot button issues your business is experiencing. And remember, don't worry about failure. You only have to be right once.